first you need to provide the tax break to Canadians, then the throne speech, then you have a substantive fall economic statement, so you have a clearer picture of the finance. But what I'm saying is that there will be no surprises in that, because we have already outlined in pretty much details during the campaign exactly how we're going to do it.
Mr. Carney said during the election campaign that he had a plan. And he took great delight in saying that a slogan is not a plan. Well, a budget is a plan. And if he does indeed have a plan, if he does know what he's doing, then he would introduce a budget so that Canadians know exactly what the finances are.
No budget, no plan. That's the accusation from the leader of the Conservative opposition following the government's decision not to release a budget. The last official look at the Fed's books came in the middle of December. On that fateful day, the fall economic statement was released, and then Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland, of course, quit. Now the Liberals say the next peek at the books will come with a, quote, substantial fall economic statement months from now. Our front bench is here to talk about that. Former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant is here. He's the CEO of Space Canada now. Tony Clement served in senior roles in Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper's cabinet. He's now CEO of Tony Clement International. And former NDP MP and BC Minister Nathan Cullen rounds us out tonight. He's now a senior advisor at Strategy Corp. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Thanks for making the time. Tony, I'll start with you. Is this a big deal that there's not going to be a budget? If so, why? If not, why not?
I think it is a big deal. We won't have a budget this year until the fall now. That's not usual. It's not good for parliamentary procedure because billions of dollars are still being spent every day of the week in Ottawa for various projects and plans. None of that has the scrutiny of Parliament. So that's not good, I would argue. I think it's better parliamentary practice to bring what your current spending plans are, at least to Parliament for review by opposition parties and by Liberal parliamentarians as well. They're in the dark as well. Does this matter? I guess is the second part of your question. And yeah, they're still in a honeymoon, so I don't think it's in any way lethal to them. But it's not a good thing when you have a government that's just been elected that is not presenting a budget.
Their argument, Nathan, against presenting it seems to be kind of twofold. The first is more, we're new, we just got in, we don't have enough time because the House is going to rise at the end of June. The other is it's also very uncertain right now, given what's going on with the trade war, which neither the Liberals or the Conservatives booked into their campaign costing, I'll point out, but that we might have more clarity in the fall, and therefore it's like not useful for us to do this now. I should also point out it's not just the Conservatives criticizing this for them. The Bloc today did, as did the NDP. What do you think?
Well, if we're waiting for certainty from President Trump before we release the federal budget, we're going to be waiting another 3.5 years because we don't have a lot of predictability, especially when it comes to things like tariffs and what Mr. Trump is going to think today versus tomorrow. I guess to your first question, Dashi, the timing seems strange to me. Tony's right. Parliament is primarily charged, its first and foremost role for all MPs that are not in the cabinet is scrutinizing the government's spending. And to go this long without that scrutiny, that's a bit worrisome. Second, this is a honeymoon period. Even the Conservatives have talked about supporting things that maybe they agree with, we'll see. But compare this to the Parliament that Canadians saw before the election, where nothing was getting done. There's willingness on the side of the NDP, which Don Davies has already talked about. Let's sit down. There's people losing their jobs right now. I know the Liberals are focused on a tax cut measure, but you can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can bring that in as a budget item. If they've articulated all the things that they want to do during the campaign time, well, if that's their budget in the fall, that can be their budget right now. And that just gives Canadians a clarity on what's happening. And I think would actually be more reassuring from Canadians rather than saying it was December. The next time we'll see the books will be October, November. That's a long time. And more importantly, if I'm worried about my job, what is the government's response to it, aside from this one measure that Mr. Carney has talked about? So I just don't know why they're doing it. I think it is good practice that they should have a budget now, because this is the time to do it. And secondly, they have a willing parliament. This is not like they're going to be taken down and suddenly we're back in an election over a budget. That seems very, very unlikely, to say almost impossibly remote.
Yeah. Feels impossible for sure. Brian, do you think there's any political impetus not to release a budget for them right now? Like, and if so, what do you think it is?
I really don't. I don't disagree with Nathan and Tony's analysis per se. I just have a little bit more sympathy. I think we have to put into context. Typically, in a calendar year, you would see Parliament rise, Parliament be finalized, everybody go home somewheres sort of mid-June. So really, if we're going with a typical kind of calendar, that's what the argument is that by typically you'd have a budget by now, then they'd have 1 month to do it. They've formed government, they just formed their cabinet. So I think we have to have a little bit of sympathy here. And frankly, there are other governments that would have done one quicker after an election, but that was also often the continuity of a government. Now, is that the case here? Debatable, I'm sure, but nevertheless, I think what we find ourselves with, and you did this in your preamble, Vash, in the sense that the sort of turbulent political times that we've been living in Canada all started with the fall economic statement in December, if I'm not mistaken, of last year, where the resignation of Freeland kind of then cascaded into what we saw happen in the first few months of this year with a leadership race. And let's be honest with ourselves, the Liberal Party went pretty quick with the Liberal leadership. The winner, Mark Carney, of that leadership called an election almost right away. So it's not like they were trying to delay. I mean, the circumstances are what they are. And I can tell you from the work that I do at Space Canada, we would check out if there were consultations with finance on the budget, and they didn't seem to be opening up. And then one day it opened up, and it seemed like the deadline was pretty darn quick. So I think they didn't really know what to do when you had a prime minister leaving, and clearly whoever would become the next prime minister would want to put their stamp on it. And the last point I'll make, I again, on the side of sympathy, one person once told me when I was in government that there is no mechanism with greater impact on showing what your priorities are as a government than the budget. And if you take that to be true, which I think it's pretty good advice, they also want to take their time. They want to consult. They want to have some runway to think things through and then present something. So the last point I'll make on maybe advice, I wouldn't wait until December for the fall economic statement as we saw in 2024. I certainly would try to do it a bit earlier, sort of October-ish this year.
Maybe less fanfare too. The minister will not quit on the same day and lead to the end of the prime minister's time. Maybe Tony, just time for one last question to you before we take a quick break. But there's more than just the budget, right? There's this tax cut. They say they're going to introduce other things into the House. The Conservatives whom I've interviewed have said like they're willing to support, as Nathan mentioned. So is the Bloc. So is the NDP. Do you think that they're, and I asked Minister McKinnon earlier, like, are they going to be straight up about what they introduce? Because parties, governments of all parties, on occasion use that legislation to be able to say, oh, look, this party didn't vote in favor of a middle-class tax cut because there's other stuff in there. He seemed to indicate in principle that wasn't their intention. Do you think that could be the case? Yeah,
I mean, if it's an up or down vote on the tax cut, I would be surprised if Conservatives didn't vote for a tax cut. Having been in government, I can tell you that there's
you guys did it too sometimes.
Well, and there's all these pressures, bureaucratic pressures or political pressures. Oh, we've got a bill coming up, put this in the bill, put that in the bill. So that's the discipline that the Liberals are going to have. If they want to have an up or down vote on the tax cut, that's one thing. But the minute you put other things into the bill, that creates a different scenario.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what they end up doing.